All right, welcome back everyone to Lakers latest. I hope you guys had a good weekend. Hope you're having a good Monday so far. It's about 5 p.m. PT on Monday. I mean, again, as good a Monday as anyone is capable of having. Obviously, it's arguably the worst day of the week. I say arguably because I've said before on here, and I'll die on this hill. Wednesday is the worst day of the week. No one likes going into work Monday, but at least you know what you're in for. Wednesday, it's like you're stuck in the middle of the week. 2 days have happened. There's still 2 days to go. It just stinks. Um, but yeah, also I hope everyone enjoyed the first day of NFL, first Sunday of NFL football. It was a wild day. Specifically, if anyone watched that Ravens Bills game, that game was just outrageous. Just so happy to have football back. Can't wait to have basketball back in about a month and a half. Preseason a little over a month. But yeah, just an awesome first day of NFL football. Crazy, some wild games, especially that Bills Ravens game was just nuts. But yeah, just an awesome first day, and finally cooling down in LA here. It's about 77 outside right now. It's gonna be high 70s all next week, which should be super nice. So yeah, can't wait for that, given it's been so hot. But yeah, let's get started. First thing on the docket today, as kind of seems to be first thing on the docket a lot of days, LeBron James. So Brian Windhorst, who we all know. Anyone who doesn't know, you know that meme. Brian Windhorst, who ever since LeBron's days in Cleveland, it's almost been like he's been like the LeBron reporter. Like it's almost felt like he's LeBron's personal reporter, and he personally reports all the stuff on LeBron. So again, like he is irritating. I'm not gonna lie. Um, with that being said, though, when he talks about LeBron, you do listen probably a little bit more than most people because he's so incredibly well connected with LeBron. He has been ever since his first stint in Cleveland, even before his second stint. So, and Windhorst has worked his way up to be obviously a very legitimate NBA reporter. He does a ton of stuff besides LeBron, but anytime he talks about LeBron, you have to listen with a little bit bigger ear. So he kind of talked. I have it here. He said, and it's kind of in line with what we've been hearing all off season, but Windhorst kind of confirms it, which is basically that right now LeBron doesn't have like a set plan. Like he's not like, yeah, this is definitely my last year, or no, I'm definitely playing after this year. He said there's some speculation that this could definitely be his last year, which again we've kind of known this for a while now. Or at least have been speculating for a while now. But then he kind of basically says right now at this point, everything's year to year. He could retire after this year. He could play one more year. But Windhorst kind of just talks about how he says the future's up in the air, that like no one really knows specifically what his plan is. And I feel like that is, somewhat important, because if there was anyone who were to know what LeBron's plans were, it would probably be Brian Windhorst, especially given their history. So like I said, when he talks about LeBron, when he brings these things up, you're gonna listen a little bit more intently than you would maybe if it was another reporter. Obviously, if it was someone like Stephen A. Smith, who's just anything he says is completely irrelevant, just an absolute useless, obnoxious, reporter, if you can even call him that. Like I wouldn't listen to anything he says. But Windhorst, that's definitely a legitimate report. Um, Diving into it, I kind of think this is something that we had already expected. Um, LeBron could retire out this year. He could stay with the Lakers one more year. He could go elsewhere. He's going to be a free agent if he decides to go that destination. But yeah, this is something that kind of is in line with everything we've heard all offseason, and it kind of just pushes the point that, especially like he doesn't say it's his last season in Los Angeles, but it kind of feels like it is, right? Like it kind of feels like like I would be surprised if he was here after this season. So I feel like, especially because of that, we've talked about the need to really do everything you can to contend this year, to put together the strongest um, piece of contention, the strongest roster you possibly can to contend with the juggernaut that is the Western Conference. I've kind of talked about, and I still feel this way. I just feel like the Thunder, the Nuggets, and the Rockets are just a tier above every other team in the Western Conference, and then you kind of have the second tier, like the Lakers, Clippers, Grizzlies, Warriors. But those three teams, they still need to do something to I think contend with those teams. And I think, and I'll get in touch into this in a minute. I think they understand that. But yeah, the LeBron speculation, I don't think it's surprising. I think it's all up in the air. He could be his last year. Could play another year. Could play 2 more years. Who knows? Probably not. But yeah, that's obviously something we're going to keep an eye on. um, throughout the entirety of the regular season. All right, next on the docket, talking about Andrew Wiggins. So I mean, I talked about this months ago, about, potential ideal Lakers trade targets. I remember I initially said, and I've talked about so many. I'm gonna talk about a couple after this too. But ideal Lakers trade targets. And I said yesterday, when you're looking at this team, like, what's one way to elevate it? It's not like, I think I talked about DeJounte Murray. It's not a guy like an inefficient scoring guard. Like, it's a two-way wing. And specifically today and last night, there's been bunch of reports, and these are almost retread reports, but they're all like coming back up, like resurfacing. Legitimate NBA reporters are reporting it. That basically, if the Heat start cutting salary and they look to trade players like Andrew Wiggins, the Lakers are going to be very interested, and they're going to try and make that happen. And I've touched base upon this. Like, I think, and I said it before, what the Lakers need, they need a wing. Like, an inefficient guard's not going to get it done. You either need a two-way wing, kind of like an Andrew Wiggins, who's going to fit in on offense. He can do his own thing. He can also catch and shoot. He's not going to be the star, but he's a more than solid offensive player, very good defensive player. We saw what he did the year the Warriors won the NBA Finals. He was fantastic defensively. He was fantastic two-way, was even rebounding incredibly in that NBA Finals. But he's the exact type of guy you want to target when you're looking to amplify two-way wings. He has a relatively reasonable contract. I think it's 2 more years, $28 million, which for the NBA is really not that much for a player like Wiggins. Now again, what would it take to get him? It really depends on what the Heat are looking for. I think he is the architect of kind of what you want to add to the Lakers, and it's interesting seeing all these reports kind of resurface now, and we're hearing more of a Wiggins now. Before it was like, oh, the Lakers would be interested if he's available, and now it's like, well, he could very well be available. It kind of seems like the Heat could, if it goes in that direction early in the season, they could start. I don't want to say a fire sale, but certainly they could start trading players like Wiggins. I don't think they would trade Hero or Bam. Which is bad because Bam would be an unbelievable fit for the Lakers. But yeah, I think that's a very realistic target if he becomes actually available, which I think he's probably going to. Because to be completely honest, even though the Heat obviously have voodoo magic or whatever the hell it is that Pat Riley has going on over there, I also think they're in no man's land right now. Like, it's certainly not a contender in the East. They're not good to compete with the top teams. They're not good enough to compete with the top teams in the East anymore, especially with Jimmy Butler gone. As great as Eric Spoelstra is, and I do think he's the best coach in the NBA, I just, the Heat just kind of seem in no man's land. Like, I personally think they could start trading a bunch of their guys in the offseason if stuff hits the fan. So he's a guy that, like I said, we've had our eye on all offseason, and now we're hearing amplified reports of the Lakers' interest. So again, I don't think the Heat are going to be good, especially if they get off to a poor start. I think talks with them could heat up very quickly. So probably not going to happen before the season starts, but very close eye to keep on. Very big name to keep an eye on as the season goes along. All right, and next on the docket, I got. This is an interesting player. I feel like at this point I've said like 4 or 5 Pelicans players that the Lakers should be interested in. I said Zion, but I don't know if that's really realistic. Same with Troy Murphy. There's Trey Murphy. Troy. One of them split. I always get confused whether it's Trey or Troy. But Herb Jones is another guy who I think you target guys like these. 2-way wing defender. Now, he's more of a 1-way wing defender, just a phenomenal defensive player. Was first team all-team defense 2 years ago. I think he came in 5th in defensive player of the year voting. He was hurt last year, so it was a little up and down. But still ended up with 10.3 points, 4 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.9 steals, 43% from the field, 30% from 3. That 30% from 3 is a little low, but he's a career 36% shooter from 3, so I feel like that's just an outlier. Also, the injury could play a role in it. But this guy is an elite wing defender. He also has a very reasonable contract, $13 million the next 2 years, which for a guy like him at his age, maybe he elevates his game, is an incredibly reasonable deal. Very reasonable deal. And I've kind of gone into how the Lakers need, and this is kind of like a secondary guy of like, okay, if Andrew Wiggins isn't available, this is a guy that maybe you could add, and he would be a great fit next to Luka. He would be a huge help defensively. And I think these are the guys that they have to target. Obviously, you want the maybe elevated two-way wings like Andrew Wiggins, but assuming guys like that won't be available, target bad teams who have good players that maybe aren't being taken advantage of, and I think Herb Jones is one of those guys. Phenomenal, like I said, phenomenal defensive player, can guard, 3 to 4 different spots, different positions. Uh, Good shooter. Again, poor shooting year last year, but I do think he's more close to that 34 to 36 range of 3-point shooter. And yeah, when you get all NBA defense, it's huge getting those threes too. So he's, when healthy, one of the best 3-and-D wings in the NBA, and a guy that any team would be lucky to have. So just the Pelicans in general, not that I think Zion's going anywhere, but I do think, like, if it goes to hell early on, which it very well could, they could start looking to trade guys like that. So, definitely one to keep an eye on. I've always loved Herb Jones. I think it'd be a great fit. So keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on kind of just the Pelicans as a whole and the bad teams as a whole too, and see if anyone like that becomes available. All right, last on the docket tonight, guys. I have another guy who I think will be a great fit for the Lakers, Ayo Dosunmu, guard for the Chicago Bulls. Really talented young player, on an incredibly reasonable contract, although he is going to be an unrestricted free agent after, or actually, I'm not sure if he's restricted or unrestricted, but he has a $7 million deal this year, which is incredibly reasonable for a player like him. Really solid player, good kind of combo guard, very good defender. Last year he averaged 12.3 points, 4.5 assists, 3.5 rebounds, 49% from the field, 32% from three. But again, he's a career 36% 3-point shooter. So I feel like, again, kind of similar to Herb Jones, that poor shooting year was a little bit of an outlier from him. And also, if he plays on a better team, could elevate those numbers too. Now, the Bulls are just an absolute disaster. I talked the other day about, if you're going to try and take advantage of any teams in a trade, it's the Bulls or the Kings. Coincidentally, two teams who have done a big trade with each other. But Ayo's a really good player. He's a really good young player. I think he would be a great fit for this team, whether it would be as maybe a starting two. He'd probably come off the bench. But, assuming you start Reeves, then you really have, because Marcus Smart's going to be great whether he's starting. If he comes off the bench, he's not a guy you're going to rely on to score a ton of points, even though obviously he has been capable of it in the past, but it's not his game. And I think a guy like Ayo could really help bring in, solidify, and run that second unit. So, him and Herb Jones are maybe guys that aren't on the block right now, but could, because they play for poor teams that might look to get something for them. So, like, for example, Ayo, I kind of just did an NBA trade machine. You could do Vanderbilt, Gabe Vincent, Dalton Connect, maybe I have a top 8, 28 protected first round pick for Ayo Dosunmu and Kevin Herter. God, I always forget how to pronounce his name. But there's ways to make it happen. But point is, I think they should be looking at all avenues to improve the roster, whether that's from maybe an elevated guy, two-way wing like Wiggins, or maybe a really good 3-and-D guard like Herb Jones, or a solid combo guard like Ayo Dosunmu. So, yeah, I just keep looking for ways to update the roster. I think at some point we're going to see a trade. I think it's going to be mid-season. But for now, I think the Lakers are probably set for the remainder of the offseason. But yeah, still excited. We're a little over 3.5 weeks away from that first preseason game, and then a little over a month, 5 weeks away from that first regular season game. So yeah, buckle up, everyone. It's going to be a fun year. And but that's it for me today, guys. I will catch you guys later.